So I'm Maïté, Minh, JEANNOLIN, and I'm also the daughter of an adoptee. Just my mother was adopted to France, and so I was born and raised in France, and I live currently in Belgium, where I work as an artist rather than performing arts, and I actually don't live in Korea. But I came to Korea to Seoul. Now it's been 3 weeks I'm here because I'm working on a scouting for a new documentary film that I'm making, which will briefly, let's say, talk about adoption from the perspective of transmission in between the second generation adoption, like so sons and daughters of adoptees, in relationship to first generation adoptees themselves, and also with a fictional, in my film, a fictional biological mother. So that's why I am here.
Thank you. And, how long will you be here doing filming? Are you?
So I'm here just 3 weeks now doing scouting, and I think I will go back and forth this next year, this next 2 years, this next 2 years.
However long the filming takes, yeah. Okay.
So we'll be back in April, and then I think back next autumn. So yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting to answer that because I'm in a very different situation. So my mother was adopted in a French family where they adopted also 2 other Koreans, not related biologically. So I have an aunt and an uncle who are Koreans. And they all have very different relationships with adoption, and also with their situation with biological search is also very different. So me, I already have like an excerpt of because in my family, so they all had daughters. It's just cousins, right? So it's like my mom had 4 daughters, my aunt 3, and my uncle 2. So we can already see a sample of second generation adopted. But from my mother's side, like she didn't want to engage in biological search, but she also didn't want to come back to Korea. And it's, I think, because her own process with adoption is quite difficult. She doesn't really want to talk about it. So it's not a problem for me, but there is like a form of, let's say, a gap for me with Korea. So it was never obvious that I had a relationship with Korea. And this is something interesting because when I met other, let's say, sons or daughters of adoptees, I felt like a very significant difference was whenever you actually had access to your biological relatives, and then you really felt a bit like what you were explaining, that like it's part of your family, and part of your family is somewhere, and part of your family is somewhere else. But in my case, it's just we do not have access, and there's so much secret and taboo, and maybe suffering as well, that it's very loaded. It's a very loaded situation. So I think I have somehow inherited that very loaded relationship to Korea, although I was not an adoptee myself. So, and just to make a link, I think it's also partly why I felt like I needed to do a film, so that I could transform that relationship. So I'm talking a lot about passive inheritage versus, let's say, active inheritage. So I felt like maybe there's like this passive inheritage was like maybe trauma, suffering, or whatever, family secrets and taboos. But there was also like an active inheritage I could actively look for, and like telling another type of story, look for other players. So this is how I felt about it.